Wow. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Okadowski of WeAreChange.org. A lot of very important news to get into today. Lots of interpersonal nonsense drama in the mainstream media, but we're not going to be focusing on that. Predominantly, we are going to be talking about the very interesting things happening right now in the financial markets, as well as the extremely eye-opening article by the New York Times that literally explains how people are being depopulated. I kid you not. Lots of things to talk about, especially with the population growth and decline with its larger geopolitical implications that, of course, we're going to be talking about here. But before we get into that, plus a lot more, a few days ago, we mentioned an epic battle happening between the ever-so-loved and adored government of Australia and, of course, Facebook, after, of course, the Australian government passed a law that would make big tech companies liable for paying producers of content. Facebook responded by blocking nearly all information-based centers coming from Australia, and now today we are reporting to you that the Australian government bent the knee to the ever more growing and powerful Facebook monopoly, and of course its tech oligarchs. As of today, Facebook and the Australian government struck a deal that nullifies the previous bill, and this is a pretty big story with a lot of bigger implications. Also in the news are some very strict words from the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen that recently warned that, quote, Bitcoin is extremely inefficient. Along with this, other negative comments about cryptocurrencies were made by other billionaires like Bill Gates and Elon Musk, which sent the price of cryptocurrencies down a little bit. In the making of this video, it is right now $45,623, a small decline to, of course, its rapid growth, which many people attribute to, of course, the ever-printing of the US dollar, with many people worrying that the dollar will inflate and, of course, won't be as valued as high as it usually is. These concerns are met by individuals in the grocery stores that are seeing the price of products rising. Along, of course, with them are also prices of US houses that are also accelerating at its fastest pace since 2014, and overall, home prices have soared 5 times over the Federal Reserve's inflation target in all American cities. Along with that, we also have rising gas prices ever since November 4th, which are steadily increasing and are expected to increase from here. And as the prices for food, shelter, and energy keep rising, it really puts some important context to Janet Yellen's criticisms of Bitcoin. So yeah, as that's happening, don't forget the independent news network that's been telling you about cryptocurrencies for a very long time now. You can return the favor by going to wearechange.org/donate, but it's also important to support us to continue our independence, and one very easy, clear way to do this is by checking out some of the companies that we work with. One of them that I like, that I trust, that I've been using for a number of years now is safepreparedandready.com. They sell 4 weeks emergency food supply that lasts you at least 25 years. Free shipping is now available. Always remember to have at least a bag of rice and beans as storable food for yourself personally. And if you're looking for some fancy smancy stuff that's going to last you a while, click on safepreparedandready.com and check out what services they have for you to offer. Another thing that I've been talking about since the very existence of this YouTube channel is, of course, the larger problems that are happening within our population. Specifically, a large number of individuals calling for population control in relation to, of course, some populations declining, which is why I found this latest opinion article by the New York Times very eye-opening, since Nicholas Kristof, again, we said a lot of negative things about the New York Times when they did something wrong, when they deserved criticism, but this is actually a very eye-opening, important article that they deserve to be actually acknowledged for doing a fair and good job here, as Nicholas Kristof tweeted, quote, counts of male reproductive cells of ordinary men around the world are dropping. Girls reach puberty earlier. Women have more miscarriages. Some male fish carry eggs, and mammal ding-dong sizes is shrinking. What's going on? Question mark. Some scientists point to endocrine disruptors. Also, not an exact quote. I had to make it YouTube friendly. And this article brings them to highlight what we've been talking about for a long time about how many scientists are concerned about the falling reproductive cell counts for men, along with the declining of egg quality in human beings, which is dropping dramatically. Along with it, of course, is also testosterone that is critically important not only for male reproductive health, but also mental health and physical health. And as Mr. Christoph starts off, he says correctly, something alarming is happening between our legs. Now, in the background of this, I think it's also important to know that for many years now, there have been a lot of establishment institutional voices saying that they are concerned about the rising population and that there is, quote, a need for depopulation, saying that there's too many people in the world, that they're creating climate change, and that there needs to be some interventions to prevent the populations from growing in our world. And then, of course, correlation does not prove causation, but I think it's something worth considering, as even individuals like Boris Johnson's father, who is a former member of the World Bank, that keeps calling for a global reset, by the way, but Boris Johnson's father literally went on the record talking to The Guardian, talking about how he wants the UK population reduced by 85%, down to just 10 million people. Boris Johnson is, of course, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. His family, of course, has ties to very establishment institutions. There's also, of course, Bill Gates that talks about the need of reducing the world's population to, of course, deal with the carbon emissions that so many people spew in this world in this famous TED Talk that he gave a few years ago. And I forgot to mention, there's also, of course, the famous comment by Prince Philip, who previously said, speaking to a German newspaper, saying, quote, in the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly sickness. Again, I'm not saying sickness here. I'm saying a word that I can only say here. He said, quote, I would like to return as a deadly sickness to contribute something to solving overpopulation. Yes, these are direct quotes from, of course, Prince Philip. There's also, of course, the founder of CNN, Ted Turner, that urged a global one-child policy, just like China had, as, of course, he himself is a father to 5 children and is one of America's largest landowners. Now, of course, there's a lot of hypocrisy surrounding a lot of these individuals that we won't even need to get into. Now, of course, correlation does not prove causation, but I do find it important to bring up these important topics and subjects, especially on the background of many statisticians, experts, and scientists even saying themselves that the world's population will normalize within a few decades, not grow from there, but go down, with even some people saying because of the fertility crisis that we're dealing with right now, that this will happen in, quote, 44 years. So with the experts saying that the population will, of course, normalize, not continue to rise in just a few decades, why is there such a keen emphasis to not to talk about these by the individuals that are calling for depopulation? And it's important to note that a lot of these very powerful people calling for this depopulation also are in businesses that, of course, they would benefit from it if it would happen. There's a lot of mentions we can make there, but we're going to keep moving on with this story since, of course, it's very clear and evident that some countries are experiencing a fertility crisis. Their populations are declining, people are not reproducing, and they are going down in droves. In Japan, for instance, more people are buying adult diapers rather than, of course, baby diapers, since, of course, people are not having children there. Some people are calling this the death spiral of demographics, like Forbes did, and along with Japan, it's also many European countries that are falling dramatically and are shrinking the most and the fastest in their population. But there's other countries in the Middle East, Africa, that are showing a vast increase in population and reproduction rates, where, of course, the fertility crisis is non-existent, and many people are having 3 or more children, which, of course, is going to continue the population growth for now. Meanwhile, Bulgaria, Latvia, Moldova, Ukraine, Croatia, Lithuania, Romania, Japan, Portugal are, of course, the fastest shrinking countries with the lowest amount of birth rates. Now, China, a country with a population of 1.44 billion individuals, which is more than South America, Europe, the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand combined, by the way, is also facing a population crisis, mainly because of a one-child policy that's been urged on by Ted Turner for the world. This, of course, leads to many socio-economic problems in China, which China recognizes will cause its empire to decline, as, of course, its economy will falter when, of course, the population keeps declining in its country. With so many males and not enough females, the country, of course, is not reproducing at a faster rate, and it's actually going through a population decline. The Chinese state knows this, and they are actually fighting this by creating a database, which they already did on 1.8 million Chinese women in Beijing and their fertility status. We know this because the list was actually released, and this is the only reason we know about it. There's other data mining and larger initiatives brought on by the Chinese that, of course, want to ensure the growth of their population, which they correlate with the growth of their economy. That's why China is doing everything it can to, of course, grow its population, except for allowing immigrants into their country. China is a very nationalistic state that does not treat outsiders very well when they come in. Some people have even described them as xenophobic. They don't want new people in their country. They don't want any immigrants. And they're even going as far as to create robots that will literally, we can't mention what the machine does here. Machines that will literally suck male reproductive cells from a willing male or even unwilling male, especially in China, to fight, of course, the larger social economic problems that have been chaotically plaguing its country since, of course, they implemented the one-child policy that, of course, Ted Turner loves. In other Western countries, they are deciding to replace the declining birth rates by, of course, opening up themselves to immigration, just like Scotland and other European countries that recognize that they are being hit with depopulation, and they're offering special Scottish visas to attract overseas workers that will essentially replace the population of their country. This, of course, will also largely change the country and have its larger socioeconomic effects as well. Now, as the Chinese literally create machines and database their women based on fertility rates, in the West, we are seeing a totally different approach, as there's even advertisements encouraging people not to have children. Yes, in many Western countries, just like in the United Kingdom, just like also in the United States, there are some advertisements and efforts telling the local population not to reproduce because you could wear high heels and play video games instead of taking care of a baby. Again, some would say this is akin to psychological warfare that will ensure the downfall of a nation, but we don't need to get conspiratorial. This is happening, and of course, this is making the situation very untangible, which some authors and scientists even akin to, of course, to the decline of the West through, of course, predominantly population changes that are becoming more and more evident and are going to be, of course, rapidly expanding from here. There also have been many efforts in the West to fight against masculinity compared to, of course, China that is trying to make their children more masculine. Two different approaches, as of course the population of the world will be declining very soon. How will China's approach meet the West approach? Well, I think it's very fair to say that the situation for the West absolutely looks like it won't be getting any better from here. And let's be honest here, from a rational point of view, these advertisements telling people not to have children, this talk about toxic male energy and masculinity, the talk about how breastfeeding is endorsing gender roles and it's ethically problematic, when of course breast milk is key towards raising a child's IQ and also making sure it is happy and healthy, is absolutely not helping the situation, which surprisingly is also even being acknowledged by the New York Times right now. Now, humans are not the only ones dealing with this, as of course alligators, otters, minks, fishes, frogs, turtles have also been going through very strange gender transition anomalies, as mentioned, of course, by the New York Times, which also goes and talks about endocrine disruptors, which, of course, mimics the body's hormones and wreaks havoc on the reproductive organs of human beings. Now, with these endocrine disruptors in our daily household products, the government not doing anything about it, it really makes you wonder what's going on here, as even the New York freaking Times is raising the alarm bells about this. So yeah, that's my take on it. This is somewhat of a pretty spicy video, so it's more imperative and important for you to share this video with your friends, family members, strangers. Hell, open up your email list. Just go through a random person that emailed you. Just send them this video without comment. Send me their replies in the comment section below. And because you do this, I am still here. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.